screen used uh, costume. All the chrome, all the Beskar is painted with this, and it cost me $140 for 4 ounces of
So
this.
it's cheap.
So
So it's about as expensive as Beskar. Cool.
yeah. I can't tell you how many people I had to kill to just get this chrome paint, but it was terrifying because you airbrush, you just airbrush and there's a process, but when there's clear coats involved and you can't have runs because you spray chrome over clear coat, if you got to run, that chrome's going to let you know that you've made mistakes, and luckily it came out pretty decent. I have no complaints with this, but when I tell you the first time I'm painting this chrome and I'm like, hyperventilating where I got my respirator on and I'm just like, I'm shaking. I'm like, because if I get this wrong, I'm going to have to redo this whole thing again. So it was a very nerve-wracking process. But I think it came out great. A lot went into the Mando costume. But then as far as painting goes, from an artist standpoint, Boba Fett kind of takes the cake because there's so many different layers. There's colors. If you really, really analyze and nitpick, there's, you look at his helmet and you see green, and there's actually like probably 7 or 8 shades of green just on the top of the dome alone. There's little grays and silvers and things that you don't pick up unless you're in a group like mine that have analyzed every square inch of this costume. And there's patterns online. There's all kinds of processes to it. But see if I can get this close up. This is my Empire Strikes Back version. And this was actually molded from the one and only movie helmet. Don't ask me how I got it. I will not reveal those sources. But if you look very closely, see if I can't. There's the scratches down here. You can feel the scratches. This was molded with all the dents. If you see all the cracks and stuff from the actual helmet, this is about as close to the movie as you're going to get. And this is my baby. This is my pride and joy. And besides the flat green and some of these other colors, everything was hand painted. We call this mark here. That's the cat scratch, and of course you got the legendary kill stripes. This was something that I hand painted. I'm not that great with an airbrush, but like I said, as an artist, to be able to reproduce something like this, and this is probably why it's my favorite costume, just because a lot of work and a lot of love went into making that as close to movie accurate as possible. If you watch Empire Strikes Back again, you look at the back of his helmet, and it's things like this little paint smudge, right? So the artists were finishing, and they were in a hurry, and they go to finish it up, and they drop paint on the helmet. They go to wipe it away, and they're like, all right, that's good enough. Put it on. Little smudge. It's because it was on screen. In a group like ours, we have to reproduce that. So it's so many little things. Under the kill stripes, there's where you pull the tape off, the masking tape or whatever, and it leaves that little residue. I have to recreate that because it's visible. I have to do it, and that's why there's very few of us Boba Fett's in the group, because not many people want to take on such a task as daunting as this. I could build a stormtrooper over the weekend and have it look legit, ready to go, and I could join the ranks with all the other ones. But this is a little bit more complicated to make. So, not so humble when it comes to this guy, because there's so very few of us, and there's so few that actually put in the work. But that's my baby. That's my boy. So, and circling back to, we talked about Casey, and of course, our boys, like when you told me Sheldon passed, and it crushed me, because man, I love that dog, and he wasn't mine, but Casey was the best pup I ever had. 100 pounds of just the sweetest pup you've ever met. And he had a very specific brindle coat, a very, the way his fur was. And I thought, it'd be really cool if I just made a Wookiee costume that kind of looked like my boy. And so that's in the works now. So I've got the boots down. I'm gonna even paint the Wookiee, like the feet, the toenails. I'm gonna paint them just like his feet, his little spots on his toes, the little white pattern on his chest. I'm gonna redo all that, and that's gonna be my little way of honoring my boy when I suit up with him.
Nice.
So that'll be coming in the next 2 or 3 months. So,
Bro, I love that, and I mean, you already know that I'm working on Sheldor the Defender, which is my kind of version of that as well. And obviously we talked about it. We're gonna be featuring Casey, and he's gonna be kind of repping some Mando-esque armor. Nothing close enough where we can get in trouble, but definitely obviously inspired by what you do. And putting him in there. And, it's funny, again, you talked about, the stuff at the park, because, obviously in the story, it's going to be Sheldor and him going at it in the park and, having this competition and everything. So that's it's very cool. And I definitely get it, because again, that's part of my process as well is just kind of having fun and, honoring him in that way. So I absolutely love that. I can't wait. We'll have to get together at a show when you're rocking your Casey Wookiee, and I've got the Sheldor the Defender comic, and just have a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, it's definitely when you told me about this project, and you saw me, you sent me a couple pictures of this is your dog in Mandalorian form, or it really just, it feels good to know that there's somebody out there that just has as much love and passion for his pets to even do something like this. And some people think it's silly, but it's like, we're doing that stuff for us. It's a grieving process. It's ways that we help cope. And everybody, like I said, a lot of people, going back to the cosplay thing, they dress up for their own reasons. And there's people that hardly speak to anyone. They have zero social skills, and they're the most introverted, quiet people. But once they put on a costume, they're interacting with everybody, and sometimes that's very therapeutic. And comics and art and drawing for me is very therapeutic. But having to express yourself through your comics, Todd, it's to see that passion, on each page, each time you turn the page, it's visible in the artists that you work with, that do everything, but the covers, it's remarkable to see how all these things go together. So every time I pull out the Titans and just skim through it, and just I get immersed in your story, and it's just like sitting at that dog park, just BSing and talking shop, and just hearing this idea that you had, and then I get to actually read it. It's pretty remarkable, man. So,
well, thank you. I appreciate that, man. It's funny again, because I feel the same way about first time we saw you at a show. Like, it was so cool. And I remember again wanting to get you copies whenever I had the first book. So I definitely completely I understand the feeling, and it's completely reciprocated. You mentioned obviously you just got back from MegaCon. So I mean, you're literally just got back. You've been back maybe a couple hours. Obviously, if you're watching this, yes, we filmed this a couple weeks in advance. We're not very good at editing. We need time. We're learning. This is what we're doing. Again, like these guys, I don't know if they're waiting on me to do it or what, but we probably edited this like right before it got put out. Just a heads up. So, Forrest, you just got back from MegaCon. Tell us a little bit kind of about that, what that was like. Obviously, it was absolutely huge. All the stuff we've seen on social media. It was a very, very big show. What was it like, man?
Wow. I mean, overwhelming. I did Saturday and Sunday. And Saturday, the last I heard, just from passing a few of the people that were running the convention, they're like, hey, I think there's 136,000 people. And that was just Saturday. MegaCon is in Orlando. Florida. Orange County Convention Center is where that's held. And, it also happens to be, the 20-year anniversary of the Hobbits, Lord of the Rings. And so all four of the Hobbits showed up, Elijah Wood, Sean Astin, Dominic Monaghan, Billy Boyd, to name Ric Flair, Undertaker, Brendan Fraser, who, he's going through a lot of personal stuff. He shows up at the convention, and the cast of Clerks, and and it's chaos in its anarchy. You can barely walk through some of these halls, and it's huge. If you've been to the convention center for anything else, it's a massive venue. And Saturday was brutal. Just getting from one end to the other to get in and out of my Mandalorian costume took about an hour and a half. Because you can't walk 15 feet without, hey, can I take your picture? And I'm not going to ever, tell anybody no, especially when you're looking at a little kid with a Baby Yoda shirt. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to take a picture with this kid. I'm not going to deprive this kid of not having that full experience of MegaCon, and that's what it is. Everybody from all walks of life. You've got us comic book geeks. You've got the collectors. You've got the cosplayers. Anime. Some people, they'll just show up for a photo op with their celebrity friend. Others they're in it for doing what we do, and our presence is very strong there. Along with the Rebel Legion, which is similar to the 501st. They're the good guys. They're the X-wing pilots, the Jedis, and the Princess Leia's, and the Wookiees, and all those guys. And then the Mandalorian mercs, and Siamese kitten like this one here. This is Ripley. She is a handful. I can't keep her off the dining room table. So yes, she was named after the one and only Ellen Ripley from Aliens. But yeah, MegaCon was incredible. Parking was a nightmare. If you ever go to MegaCon, listen to me when I tell you, get there early. It's wild. And today was a little bit more relaxed. Of course, the volume of people was I would say half. Which it's nice to be able to walk around without having to get like you feel like you're in a mosh pit. But I tell you what, it's as crazy and chaotic, and as I said before, like it's for a guy like me, I like the crowd. I like to be around like-minded people, and just to see how much fun everyone's having. It's I'm very, extroverted. I like being around crowds. So for me, the crazier it is, the more fun, the more people get to see me in costume, the more people I get to interact with. And, when you're watching a show and you're 5 years old, and you see the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda, like that's your hero, he's iconic. So I show up in Mandalorian, that kid gets to see his character up close, and it's phenomenal. But yeah, to get back to MegaCon, sorry, I do ramble sometimes.
All good, bro.
It's so much fun. You've been to a lot of conventions, going around with your book and everything else, and there's really nothing like it. MegaCon is an absolute circus, but I look forward to it every single year.
Is there any I'm sorry, I gotta ask my question. Sorry, but is there any the way you said the Rebel Legion and started describing some of these good characters leads me to believe there might be some animosity between the 501st Legion and the Rebel Legion. Am I right? And can you expound on that a little bit?
It's funny because like it's I tend to get that way, but I do it more in jest now than anything. But when you're a TIE pilot, or you're a stormtrooper, and then you see an X-wing pilot, or you see somebody dressing up as Chewbacca or Han Solo, or you're like, oh, rebel scum. You're just rebel scum. And we joke with each other. We have that mutual.
Yeah.
We just kind of. It's not necessarily like, oh, we physically cannot stand these people. No, we all get along.
Okay.
And because we're all kind of in it for the greater good. As a matter of fact, the wife has a couple Jedi costumes. She's got an Ayla Secure costume. And then she's going to eventually work on an Ahsoka Tano costume from the Clone Wars, which I'm excited about because I think she's just going to nail it when it comes to that costume. But yeah, no, we all get along. There's another group called the Mandalorian Mercs. So if you don't want to build a Boba Fett costume, but you really like the look of it, and let's just say, Angel, what's your favorite baseball team?
Oh, the Yankees. First place Yankees.
Okay. And just hear me when I say this. Like, just imagine having like a Mandalorian, and you've got like this navy blue flight suit, and you've got white armor, you got a white helmet, and you've got pinstripes, and you've got, you can't have New York all over it, but you take what's passionate, take something that's passionate, even if it's just a color scheme or a theme or something. And, you can be like, I'm going to build my costume, but I love the Yankees. So I'm going to have these classic pinstripes, and I'm going to make it look a certain way. And then you build a costume, and then the Mandalorian Mercs, it's all Mandalorians.
Okay.
There is no Jedis. There is no any of this other stuff. It's just Mandalorians.
You sold him on it now. He's actually figuring out how to build a New York Yankees Mando costume as we speak. He's going to hit you up after for assistance on this. And when he shows up at a show in this suit, I am going to blame you.
Look, but here's this. Being a Detroit Tigers fan, I'm sorry. I'm where they're at in the standings is not even laughable. But yeah, it's you show up in a costume. I mean, that's if we get Angel in the costume, that's success. I don't care if it's Yankees.
I don't know if the world is ready for that personally.
Bro, we get Angel to a show.
Yeah, I think getting to a
think
show is a good start. Good start.
Yeah.
But when I tell you, when you put on a helmet, and you put on a costume, you get suited up, and you look yourself in the mirror, and you're like, yeah, this is sweet. And everything else goes out the window, all these fears, all these questions and doubts. We'll get you in the costume, man. We'll get
that'd
you
be cool. It would make my kids' day. They absolutely love that kind of stuff, man. So
yeah,
we'll see.
She's so my wife, Ashley, when I tell you she's warmed over this cold bounty hunter heart of mine. I'm all about the bad guys. I cheer for the bad guys when Batman's fighting the Joker. I'm like, I really hope Joker gets the upper hand. I'm cheering for Thanos. That's I've always liked the bad guys. They seem to have a little bit more personality. But she's got a couple of these good guy costumes. She's got the Leia costumes. So she's like, I think you look great in an orange jumpsuit. And I'm like, absolutely not. You will not see me in an X-Wing pilot costume. Absolutely not. I'm not doing it. I don't want to do that. It just sounds really lame. So now I have an X-Wing pilot costume with a Rebel Legion. I have a snowtrooper pilot, and ultimately, she's gonna make me a Jedi costume, and of course, I'll get done with my Wookiee costume. So even if there's animosity, we all get over it, and we're all, like I said, we'll finish a convention, and I'll make fun of that, pilot and call him rebel scum, but we'll go out and have dinner and drinks and stuff, and because we're all we're all friends, we're all family, everybody's interchangeable. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of give me a little bit of street cred at shows because, I just walk up to the 501st. I'm like, yeah, I know Forrest Davis. And then it's complete hit or miss. Like, they're either like, yeah, who's that? Or they're like, oh, yeah, we know Forrest. And I just roll with it, So it's.
Yeah, it's a trip because most people in my group, I've been in it for a few years, so yeah, most of them know me or at least know of me. And I try to explain to people, I'm like, yes, I'm the only Boba Fett in like Northeast Florida, like in Jacksonville. If you see Boba Fett show up, don't have to ask, hey, is that Forrest? It's me. There's a couple of Mandalorians in our group, and when you're at a parade in St. Augustine and you're walking, having the time of your life, and your dad runs out there and says, "Hey, son," and gives you a big hug, and you realize like later on that, Dad, I was not the Mandalorian. That was somebody else.
Wow.
So
Tell me that happened. That's a true story.
That's exactly what happened. My dad, there's another group called Costumers for a Cause, and they can wear their Spider-Man or their, Scarlet Witch, whatever they feel like wearing, and they have a similar, goal and mindset when it comes to, raising awareness and charity groups and all of that. But of course, costumers is that's it. That's a blanket. It's vague enough to where you can be Star Wars, classic Marvel movie character, whatever you want. But yeah, I'm like, Dad, that wasn't me. But at the same time, it's funny because I'm in this costume, like you can't see my face, you don't know who this is. I could be anyone. But I can see you. And there's so many times where I'd walk by somebody and I would wave like, hey, Angel, hey Nick, what's going on, guys? And oh, okay. And just walk away. And then for me it's fun because I'm like, that person's gonna be like, I don't know who that was. Like, who was that? And I'm like, that could have been Forrest. And but yeah, of course I'm gonna pop the helmet off and it's like, oh yeah, hey, yeah, like I know this guy, it's great. But yeah, I have fun with these costumes, man. It's a trip. Yeah, especially when you can just come and surprise people. One of the, going to, I think you mentioned, what is it, Infinity Con?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first con I went to was Infinity Con. And I mean, this was a month into finishing my Stormtrooper costume. And when I say it was a con, I think it was in a tent at the time in like Lake City.
We went to that.
they had, I think, the cast of Battlestar Galactica and like, the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, like he was there, like, and that's like when you're a kid and you watch wrestling and it's like, oh man, that's the $1 Million Man. And it freaked me out because I'm like walking around in my Stormtrooper costume and this guy who like, I had the dude's pajamas. I had his little action figures, the little fun wrestlers that we had. And like this dude's like, hey, come here. And like he's taking pictures of me and like we're doing selfies and I'm like, dude, I used to worship you, man. Like, it's weird. And I'm walking in my Stormtrooper costume, like I own the place. And I'm going up to like, the security. I'm like, hey, I'm just going to go ahead and walk over here. And they're like, okay. I'm like, all right. So I'm just going to go. And I'm like, okay, cool, man. And I'm like, I'm just going to go meet the entire cast of Battlestar Galactica in my Stormtrooper. And he's like, yeah, okay, here, let me help you with the gate. Like, and he pulls the rope out. And I'm like, this is amazing. Yeah, I get to bump elbows with celebs and I've met quite a few of them, and they're pretty cool.
Well, you got to name drop one or two. What's one or two of your cooler ones or ones that kind of obviously you said Ted DiBiase, but what else kind of stood out to you? Because again, I mean, I've got a couple of funny stories. I missed so again because we're talking Mandalorian. So the armor, Emily Swallow, I think, Emily Swallow. She was at CollectiveCon,
Yep.
and she was at CollectiveCon. This was like 2 years ago. It was during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So we're doing the show, and Nick, you weren't at this one. It was just me doing the table because we had no idea what it was going to be. There was only like maybe 20-something vendors or something like that. So she's doing a presentation. I showed up late, and so I didn't even they had given my table away. So I had to go get a table, and they basically were like, all right, just set up wherever you want. All right, we lost Forrest. Hang on. Man, we made it through like 53 minutes without a technical difficulty, right?
2 weeks in a row. There's something about that 50+ minute. Man. I'm cursed.
He's back. There you go.
There he is.
He better be in costume.
There he is. Oh, hey, Forrest,
This is becoming a trend.
Yes, yes, that's what the people are here for. That's awesome. Nice.
Man, if you didn't want to hear my story, you could have just told me.
I'm just done chatting with you. No, Emily Swallow, Collective Con. It was COVID, and go.
So she was doing her presentation. Well, when they told me to set up a table, I picked right by where they were doing all the presentations. And so I'm just over there, and I'm catching everybody as they're leaving and trying to sell to them, and like killing it. It's been a great weekend. So she's doing hers. I'm busy, no idea what's going on. I lose track. I mean, I lost track of how much I sold. I lost track of who I was talking to. So at some point, somebody comes up wearing a mask and can't really tell who it is. And I made my pitch, and I did not close the sale. Okay. And so later that evening, I met the person who was running the show. And at that time, I had met a couple of the voice actors as well. And I was like, yeah, I met 4 of the voice actors, or I met 4 of your people. And, I closed all of them, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, if you close 4, you were 4 for 5. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, you pitched Emily Swallow, and she just turned around and walked away. And I was like, wait, that was her? I was like, oh, I had no idea. Cause again, she was completely masked up. Like I had no idea who I was talking to. And he's like, yeah, bro. He's like, no matter what happens, you didn't close the armor. And I was like, great. So to this day, my wife still gives me grief about this. Like I tell her about it. And every time we watch Mandalorian and she pops up, she's like, yeah, you didn't sell her comics. I'm just like, seriously. So what are some of yours?
Yeah, Emily Swallow, is funny you mentioned her. And she's a Jacksonville native. Like she's from, I mean, as far as born here, I mean, you can IMDb or Wiki, Google. She's friends with a bunch of my friends that I grew up with, like childhood friends. So when she comes to Collective Con, she like comes home and like goes and hangs out with the family and stuff like that. So, as a matter of fact, one of her closest friends owns the venue that we got married in. So, of course, when I got to meet Emily in my Mandalorian costume, and she was flipping out, head over heels in love with it, and I'm like, oh yeah, thank you. So to get the nod of approval from the armorer, that was one very special moment. But I'm like, hey, this person, and she's like, oh my God, yeah, is she here? And I'm like, no, but we are getting married at her venue, and so being able to have something like to share with a celebrity, that's not just the armor, but she's on Supernatural and some of these other so she's been a name way before the armor came around. But to talk to her about that, what's it like being on the set, or can you move around in that costume, because I sure can't. And she's like, yeah, it's different for me, but yeah, I can't move, and it's really hard to do this thing where I have to do, and but all I have to do is just sell the shot. That's it. When you're an actor and you're in that mindset, and you're like, yeah, these guys, they might be in makeup for all this time, but like they get this 5-second shot and they're done, and that's it. They're gone for the day. And so yeah, Emily was an absolute sweetheart. Next time I'm around, we'll get you that comic. We'll get you. I will help you get that sale.